EV Comply, simplifying your charge point installations.
Another week, another podcast. It's Friday the 16th of September. Now, with a view of what happened with our Queen, we respectfully took last week off to pay our condolences. And this week, we're celebrating all the fantastic people we've interviewed in the industry in light of World EV Day that, of course, rightfully so, was moved. So here's some of the people that have made a huge difference in the industry so far that we've managed to chat to on our pod. Cannot believe it, which means it's taken me 26 weeks to get EV Comply CEO Stephen Smith to actually come and have a chat with us on our own podcast.
Hey Chelsea, how are you doing?
Yeah,
Good afternoon.
How are your arms since I've had to twist both of them to get you on here?
Yeah, not too bad actually. No, it's a pleasure to come on. Obviously, I've been reluctant, as you know, to come on
Yes.
this. But the idea of the podcast was not to promote EV Comply. It was to promote the sector as a whole and the industry and all the fantastic things that are happening and whether it be the businesses or the technology. So yeah, that's why this took you 26 weeks to get me on.
We have spoke to some great people, haven't we? There's been a lot of people actually over the 26 weeks that we've had a chat with. I'm joined with Paul Kirby, head of EV and LCV at Vanarama, the UK's leading independent commercial and personal vehicle online leasing company with nearly 30 years experience. A massive hello, Paul Kirby.
Well, hello. Gosh, I sound really important.
You do. Well, we did actually think about placing a prince or legend at the beginning, but as you kindly stated, legend would be better.
I think so, definitely.
So thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. We really do appreciate it.
No, it's a joy to be with you, and it's always good to have an opportunity to talk about the things that we're going to cover today. Vans and cars moving to electric vehicles. And so one thing that we've actually done with electric vehicles in particular is actually give away something. So this is a part of our proposition, but it's around making life easy for the customer. And it is to give away an electric vehicle charger at your home. So that's, something that came out from research was that people were scared of electric vehicles. How do I charge them? When you can wake up every morning with the vehicle on your drive with a full charge, and you can be really confident when you go to use that vehicle. So we wanted to make our customers more confident in this transitional phase running up to 2030, when of course all vehicles will be electric.
The results basically said that 83% of commercial vehicle customers would consider an electric van as the next vehicle or car for their business in particular. However, 90% did admit to not really knowing enough about EV and maybe being a little bit apprehensive.
It's good that you bring that out. That research was very enlightening, and one of the most enlightening aspects of it was the commentary that came back. So we obviously had some yes/no answers that got us to all the percentages. But what was also interesting was we gave them some free type text, where people would just say, this will never work, or loads of feedback with lots of different things. But there was all around, really, we don't know enough. No idea what this is. It sounds like a really good idea. I want to help the planet, but it won't go far enough. I can't charge it quick enough. And all of these are actually quite relevant in some cases, because we're not ready, certainly from a van or a commercial vehicle point of view, we're not ready to change everything to electric today. Cars are growing faster, but the commercial vehicle world is not quite so much. But one of the things that we have found that is the charging bit is really important. So understanding charging, how do I charge at home? How do I charge at a workplace? So you might have a charge point fitted to your offices. Companies now doing that. And then out in the public world, and this is where it gets a little bit complicated, and the charge point providers themselves don't always help because they make it complicated. They make you want to go to their 100 or 200 charge points rather than everybody go to any available charge point. And there's no one network is big enough to serve the whole of the UK. So you can't rely on just one type of charging, unfortunately. And so interoperability, which is basically the ability to go to any charger and just pay for the energy, has been one of the things that's, we're questions and problems that we're trying to solve with our customers. And we've got some ideas that are not quite there yet. that are just around the corner. But also the other aspect of what people want is that education. They want to know more, and they want to have a place where they can come, they can look at vehicles, they can understand about charging, they can ask the questions that they want to ask, and not feel stupid about it, but and be able to kind of navigate to those answers. So there's no better place than the webpage, and we're just about to launch our EV hub, or grid, as I think we're going to call it, where people can just come in and kind of get everything that they need.
So I'm currently joined with Sam Clark, Chief Vehicle Officer at GridSurf, who are in fact the brains behind the UK's first electric forecourt. Hello, Sam.
Hi, Chelsea. Nice to be here. Hi.
Yeah, thank you for joining us on the podcast. We really appreciate it. So, I mean, I think I just said it, the UK's first electric forecourt. That's a pretty cool claim for you to have, isn't it?
Yeah, it may even be the first one in the world. We're not entirely sure, but we certainly think it's definitely the best, or the first one in the UK. Yeah, so we're incredibly proud to get it up and running now. In a challenging time as well, of course.
Well, of course. I mean, fortunately, the EV sector is going even during this challenging time from strength to strength, which is brilliant. And the fact you have been able to, still plough on and get it done is great. So I suppose really what I first want to know is, how did you pick the site? Choosing the site must have been hard because it's the first one. How did you go about choosing that?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of over 100 sites we're going to build around the country in the next 5 years. So we've got really, really fierce ambitions to get that done. The one in Braintree in Essex just happened to be one that the stars aligned first with, and we've got a very complex data set that we have to analyse to see what the best location is, and it's based on a lot of parameters, but things like vehicle movements around the busy roads. It's on a very busy dual carriageway in the A131 in Great Notley with thousands of cars travelling down that road every single day. Then we've got grid connection considerations, as well as where our energy is coming from. We build and own solar farms as well, so we've got a location 44 miles down the road, which is a 60-acre solar farm, which is generating all the energy for site, as well as other means of use of that energy. So yeah, there's a number of different things. Obviously, the demographic, the population. There's all sorts of things which go into the mix, and then of course got all the planning constraints and the substation upgrades or building of substations, etc. So we've got a 5 megawatt grid connection on site, which is pretty big, as well as 6 megawatt hours of energy stored as well. So yeah, it's a serious site, and takes an awful lot of effort to get all those things set up so that we can go live.
And how many years in the planning was this before it came to actual fruition?
Well, our CEO, Tonington Harper, I think he had the idea of this about 3 years ago.
Right.
We spent the last 2 years preparing for this one, and I think we broke ground earlier in the year on this site and got it up and running just before the end of the year, which is great. But we've taken our time. It's the first of many, so we wanted to make sure we try and get as much of it right as possible. I think we've done that. And then hopefully, as we roll more out across the next few years, we'll be able to speed things up a little bit, do things concurrently. A lot of the design work has been modular, so that we can recreate the same exercise multiple times. So hopefully we'll crack on from here at quite a pace.
I'm joined with Gordon Rootledge, who is the technology editor of eFix. Hey, Gordon.
Well, Chelsea, I'm really pleased to be along. So yes, and you see where we are now, a few years on. Energy is always in the news. EVs are always in the news. Everybody's interested in it. Everyone wants to talk about it. So yeah, great opportunity, and that's what kind of led us to doing eFix.
About eFix and how obviously that came about, and obviously you've got a YouTube page now with how many subscribers?
We're just about, hopefully in the next week we'll be up to 250,000 subscribers, and we just last week, which was great because all the team was together, we passed 250 million views across the video.
Crazy figures. Like you say, it is an industry that people are interested in. So how was eFix born then? How did you, particularly the YouTube side of things, because normally to get people who, aren't media trained or whatever in front of a camera is a difficult one, and you all do it so brilliantly. But how did you think, do you know what, actually we think this requires a visual?
Yeah, I mean, it's a strange story really. So our original plan, because I've been in a business where I did trade shows, which was a great business, and that's what we set eFix up to do small trade shows. We're bobbing around the country doing things for electricians, pop-up events, and obviously lockdown came along. So we had 20 events planned just going into the start of lockdown. We had to cancel them all. And we always had the YouTube channel sort of ticking around in the background, because that's what one of my colleagues, Gary and Joe, had already built quite successful channels in the space. So we thought, right, what we're going to do? No, this is an absolute disaster, this whole lockdown, so we're going to have to double down on the YouTube channel. So our studio's in Skipton, and that was really built to store stuff for our live events. So we literally had to take the stages that we used to use on the road, and that became our first bench. And when we looked at our early videos, it was basically, what can we use as a table? Because bear in mind, nothing was open, you couldn't get anything.
Of course. I love this.
And we started going to YouTube, so doing sort of, I guess, we always try and give some form of education in the videos, regardless of how, crazy or off the wall we go in them. There's always hopefully an element of learning in there. And then we just built the channel from there, and then we just started. So, and we're all, I mean, for us, we're all big fans of Top Gear, so we're not averse to stealing formats from other shows and trying to adopt it for electricians.
Fabulous, I love it, and it's always delivered with a lot of high energy, a big smile, and a lot of banter. I find your videos very, very funny. Now, you've gone on from...
So I'm currently joined with Gary Frost, who is in fact head of Rolex EV contractor relations. Hello, Gary.
Yep, no, it's great to be here, and appreciate you inviting me, Chelsea. Thank you.
This week we've been touching upon, obviously, the fact that, are we going to reach a point where there's a lot of electric vehicles and there aren't the charging facilities, which I think you've kind of touched upon. And I think, sadly, that's looking likely, isn't it, unless we kind of massively pull our socks up. So this week I've been asking people, would you be willing to share your charge point with a neighbour? Because they reckon that maybe, kind of cross-charging, sharing of charging would be a good way forward. What do you think about that? Or do you think maybe there's a better solution out there?
I think it's an option. I guess, firstly, it depends on your relationship with your neighbour. If you don't like each other, then that's probably not going to be a viable option. But yeah, if you're friendly with them, then I guess, I don't know how you would do that in terms of, I suppose you're having to rely on them or yourself paying for what you use, of course. We have an app-based solution like that, so you could see all of your usage on your Home Smart app. But then it's showing, I don't quite know how that would work in terms of which vehicle would charge. Perhaps you'd have to meter that in a separate way. I'm not opposed to that idea at all. We definitely know there's going to be an issue with on-street charging, as we all go towards electric vehicles.
With Sophie Adams, who is Head of Consumer Experience at OZEV. Hey, Sophie.
Hi.
It's so nice, as I've said to you before, to be talking to a girl in this industry, because they're kind of few and far between still, which is sad.
It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, there are a lot of women that I'm seeing now sort of come into this sector, and that is hugely exciting, and there's some great role models, which, to be honest, that I'm really happy about.
Now, for those who don't know, the majority of the people listening to this podcast will probably be very familiar with OZEV, but for people who don't know, what is your role within the company, and what is kind of OZEV as a whole?
So OZEV is the Office for Zero Emission Vehicles, and our focus really is to support the decarbonisation of transport, so we can start to tackle climate change and meet our long-term targets to get to a sustainable future. But what we really want to do is reduce emissions to improve air quality, reduce carbon emissions, and help the future generation. And my role is to improve the consumer experience, so consumers can use the charging infrastructure really easily, to make sure that they want to buy EVs, and that people can really easily travel wherever they want to across the UK, even go into Europe, and that this process of charging is really easy, simplified, and everyone is happy. And for example, on World EV Day, we had announced more detail on sort of what we're going to do in the near future. But to be honest, we're looking at how we can make sure that the grant makes the most difference and constantly keeping them under review. So what do consumers need? What do installers need? And really understanding what is the function of all of this.
Another week, another podcast here at EV Comply, and I'm actually joined with a special guest, a huge huge hello to Will Maiden, who is in fact the co-founder of Fuse.
Hello.
Hey Will, are you all right?
Yeah, I'm fine. How are you? How are you doing?
Yes, thank you. No one asks me, Will. No, I'm joking. People ask me a lot. I am good. Like most, very busy, as we've just said before, off mic. Now, Fuse is an operating system for EV chargers, isn't it? Do you want to elaborate on that, Will, for the listeners for me?
Yeah, I can do. It's so we're a UK-based firm, and we've created a hardware-agnostic charge point management solution. So what does that really mean? Well, we can work with pretty much any OCPP charger out there. So you can get all of your chargers, regardless of brand and make and manufacturer, on the same system and benefiting from the same innovations that we've pushed through our platform. So so we offer that centralized view of charge points, basically.
Okay, so I'm going to say something maybe a little controversial, but how smart is smart charging really? Well,
it's genuinely a really interesting question. We spent quite a lot of time inwardly debating that and outwardly debating it, and talking with organisations like Innovate UK and other government bodies about what is smart charging, because there's a lot of, I would say misconceptions, but misconceptions is probably the wrong word. There's a lot of different views as to what makes up smart charging. So from one extreme, people will say, well, smart charging is just a charger that's connected to the internet. So if you have a wireless connection, a wired connection, or a cellular connection to the internet, if it can be controlled from outside, that's smart charging. Absolutely on the other end, there's the point of view where you plug in, you don't have to do anything, and the car and the charger work together and charge your car so that it's ready for when you leave. So there's a real variety in between there, and there's a variety of what can be included and what isn't included in smart charging. I mean, it got so confusing that we tried to, and we have actually defined, and I can share this with anyone who's interested, a sort of 4-point different plan as to what we think makes smart charging. Right down to what's included, whether it includes looking at the building to check there's power to do this, or whether it includes looking at the historical use of the vehicle to predict usage. We got sort of 4 different levels that we quite happily share with people to try and get some standard.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, isn't it, really? I mean, this is happening. It's a movement that obviously is going forth, whether people like it or not. But I do think, the regulation is very scarce in this sector, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think the requirements are very different depending on what you're looking at as well. A home user having a smart charging solution is beneficial for them, but it's a very different problem and a very different solution to a fleet having a smart charging solution, just by the sheer number of vehicles attached and the calculations that need to be carried out.
And this week on the pod, we've got Grace Webb.
Hello, thank you for having me.
For the listeners who don't know about you, Grace is the presenter and the face of Driving Electric, which is an online platform that basically talks about everything, Grace, doesn't it, to do with electric cars. You've got facts, advice, reviews, and all that kind of stuff, haven't you?
Yeah, exactly that. So you can mainly find Driving Electric on YouTube or on their website, and like you say, it's just full of information that people might want to know to turn to driving electric.
Fabulous. And what people I'm sure will know is that you are actually a part of the team for Fifth Gear, aren't you? So in its 29th series, this is really exciting. We loved this. Fifth Gear went fully electric, and
yes.
It's now Fifth Gear Recharged. We love that name. And your role there, Grace, is to investigate everything to do with electric, basically, and that's always been your role, hasn't it? Like renewable energy, the extending range.
So like my nieces and nephews will probably they might drive a petrol or diesel car once or twice as a gimmick, but as a day-to-day car they'll probably only have electric cars. And it's strange to think that the world is changing quite rapidly.
Thank you for listening, and a massive thank you to all of the contributors who have been featured on the pod and for all that they've contributed towards the EV industry. EV Comply will be closed on Monday the 19th of September as a mark of respect for Her Majesty the Queen. From everybody here at EV Comply, you have a good week.